Hi, it's me, Mr. Garley. I wanted to talk for just a moment because it wasn't apparently very clear in other videos about the Band of Four where the lines were, where the delineation is. And the easiest way to explain it in a way that makes sense to the most people is to use the Harry Potter houses. For me, the theory was actually developed with the Ninja Turtles. I know. Everybody makes fun of me for using the Ninja Turtles. All my current students are like, nobody knows who the Ninja Turtles are. Or nobody cares, which is fine, but that's where I initially got some of the theory from. And also, I should say, the much of this developed because of the way Texas is. So I would not have this set of ideas, if I had not... Hello, Penny. That's Penny. She's Swedish. She only speaks Swedish. Yes. But in Texas, my wife would be going to these artist conventions. And I would take her and her friends, and my friends too, Cindy and Lisa and any number of other people. And Kaylee, all these other friends, to conventions. And I would basically take care of them and make sure that they survived. Because they would stay up for 2 or 3 days so they could keep making art and keep making money. And I would, remind them to drink water and eat food and go to the bathroom and sleep. Because they would be so busy making money in art that they wouldn't. I was also the driver. So we would drive up there and they would fall asleep and we'd be on the road for 3 hours. And so my mind would just be blank. And when they were sleeping, I could just listen to music. But when they were awake, I wanted to do something. And so we would have these conversations about the Band of Four and about how, isn't it weird that whenever there's 4 characters, they fall into these 4 roles? So the 4 roles are basically, and I'm going to use these to define them, the leader, the rebel, the fun one, and the smart one. Those aren't exact, they don't exactly fit, but the highfalutin names that I usually use to explain them are a little more specific than I want to do in this video. So the leader would be the Slytherin type. And don't complain, I'll explain in a minute. The rebel will be the Gryffindor type. The fun one will be the Hufflepuff. And the smart one will be the Ravenclaw. So what those are named for is what's most important to them. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be very good at them. Like, somebody who desperately wants to be a hero but is really bad at it is still going to be a Gryffindor. Somebody who really, really wants to be a leader, even if they're really bad at it, is still going to be a Slytherin. Somebody who really, really wants to have fun, even if they're just terrible at having fun or making other people have fun, still a Hufflepuff. And somebody who's desperately in pursuit of knowledge, even if they just suck at research, is still going to be a Ravenclaw. It's really about what guides you, what leads you. But there's also another thing to it, which is the idea of the grid. There's a grid. And on that grid, there is a line this way and a line this way. And then there's the 4 houses. So the 2 lines are, do you respect the rules? And respect for the rules is more than just following the rules. Lots of people follow the rules even though they could give a rat's ass that there are rules. Lots of people have trouble with the idea of rules. They still follow them because they don't want to be punished. But the respect for the rules is the dividing line. The other dividing line is whether you usually have a plan. And planning is technically learned behavior. But there are some people who are more inclined to have backup plans, who are more inclined to say, okay, if this doesn't work, I've got this and this. And plans are multi-step. So if you always have a plan and you completely respect the rules, you're a Ravenclaw. If you always have a plan but don't respect the rules, you're a Slytherin. If you don't have a plan and don't respect the rules, Gryffindor. And if you respect the rules but don't have plans, Hufflepuff. So the Ravenclaws, they pretty much they may not be caring about what other people do, but they always have a set of rules. That set of rules may not be the same as everybody else's rules, but they stick rigidly to their own set of rules. And they always have a plan. They tend to have a backup plan. They tend to have, if this doesn't work, I've got this and this and this. Similarly, the Slytherin almost always have a plan, but they very rarely respect other people's rules. They might have their own rules that they follow, but other people's rules, they're just like, those are for stupid people. Gryffindors almost always respect the rules. Don't respect the rules. And they don't usually have a plan. They usually just kind of throw themselves into a heroic situation and, think that their heroism and basic strength and goodness will save them. And quite often get a bunch of people killed. Each house also has two kind of roles in it, but I'll get into that later. And the Hufflepuffs, usually they respect the rules because they like looking out for other people. But they also, they don't always plan ahead. So quite often they'll be late or they'll be doing stuff that just because they're trying to help people. So, my example earlier was the Avengers. Captain America always has a plan. He's very tactical. He analyzes every situation and makes a plan and does it. He also has a very rigid set of rules, a very rigid morality that guides him. There's right and wrong. Your Slytherin in that group is going to be Tony Stark, Iron Man. He does not respect rules at all. He ignores rules all the time. But he's always got a plan. And his plan is always evolving. And it's very, very important for him to be in charge. Even though technically he is not in charge of other people, he is always in charge of himself. He very rarely takes orders very well. Similarly, Thor is the Hufflepuff. I don't really feel like anybody questions that. He's the fun one. He cares about other people. He follows the rules. He doesn't always know the rules. He's often confused by, so I can't just, kill people, or I can't just sleep with people who happen to be in relationships, or I can't drink all of their beer. He doesn't seem to know the rules, but once he hears that something's a rule, he's like, okay, cool. I can follow those rules. But he almost never has a plan. And finally, the Hulk, and it's very important that you say the Hulk and not Bruce Banner, because Bruce Banner is a Slytherin. But the Hulk is very much a Gryffindor, because the Hulk doesn't have a plan, and he doesn't respect rules. He just does his own thing and very, very rarely thinks beyond the next thing. There is a reason that I am uncomfortable with Gryffindors, and it's because my early life was ruled by them, and as a person who loves to make plans, having people who never follow plans and never roll with plans and always disrupt other people's plans, it makes you crazy. And whenever you're trying to have an established, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going, schedule, which is very important to some people, and I'm one of them. It's very, very much a situation where Gryffindors just drive you nuts. You just learn to hate them because they won't follow any of the plans that you have. And they don't behave in a way that can be predicted. So in a story like Star Wars or Harry Potter or honestly anything where you've got one person rebelling against this huge overall thing, that person is usually going to be a Gryffindor. That's how Gryffindor stories work. Gryffindor stories are when it's one plucky rebel against the overwhelming other things. Slytherin stories are usually about one person who is trying to lead a group of other people. And sometimes they'll be successful, like Captain America. And sometimes they'll be really, really unsuccessful, like in The Office. In The Office, Scott is a Slytherin because he's trying to be a leader. He's not very good at it. He's terrible at it, as a matter of fact. But that's the most important thing to him, is being a good leader. For your Hufflepuff stories, you're usually going to have a story about family or the importance of taking care of others. SpongeBob, perfect example. SpongeBob is clearly the Hufflepuff. And clearly he cares about other people. He's the fun one. He's all about respecting the rules, but he never plans ahead. Never. And when he does, it never goes well. And then finally, you got your Ravenclaw stories. Ravenclaw stories are usually the stories about one sane person who has to put up with all of these crazy people, who has to deal with the fact that all these other people just don't follow any rules whatsoever. And so you're going to have that situation where you're just putting up with other people. So those are depending on the kind of story, you're going to have a different focal character. And depending on what you're trying to say, you're going to have a different focal character. But I have noticed that there's almost always 4 characters. And so the movie that we recently watched, if you haven't seen, you should go see Princess Bride. It really needs to hit you at a certain age. If you see it when you're a kid, you'll probably love it. If you see it as an adult, you might think it's too cheesy. But it does follow the rule of 4. Your Man in Black is clearly a Slytherin. Your Fessig is clearly a Hufflepuff. It's arguable, but I believe that Inigo is a Ravenclaw who is obsessed with sword fighting. That's his thing. He's obsessed with. That's his knowledge. And of course, Buttercup, who never follows rules and keeps getting everybody else in trouble, is your Gryffindor. Gryffindors often need to be rescued. That's part of why I have the whole headcanon about Harry Potter and Hermione and the Time Turner, but we'll get to that some other time. Anyway, that should explain, at very least in Harry Potter terms, the basics of what I mean when I'm talking about the Band of Four and the division and how it works. Feel like that probably covers enough. I am trying a new horizontal format because I had a viewer complain about my tall format. So we'll see if I can actually put this up in a way that isn't sideways. We'll see. Wish me luck. I'm not going to be doing these every day. This is just, I do have a lot to say and I can go ahead and say some of it. So this helps me get my thoughts in order for the reports that I am currently working on. I'm trying to get a PhD proposal turned in. I will probably have some about zombies later on because that's what my master's thesis is going to be about. And believe it or not, despite the fact that I am referencing a bunch of pop culture, this is all pretty deep literary stuff. So if you're enjoying this, great, cool. But if you're not, that's okay. You don't need to be following this just because you know me and you think I'm cool. I have a lot of students on here, but at the same time, it's not about this. There's not a message here. This is purely me thinking and talking about stuff. So hopefully you guys have a great weekend, and I will post more when I have more to say.